Hi, I'm Marc Gorelick, Children's Minnesota President and CEO, and I'm here today with Kelly Wolfe, who is the Director of Public Policy and Advocacy here at Children's Minnesota. And we're going to talk a little bit about the upcoming election. Thanks for being here, Kelly.
Thank you for having me.
So we have an election coming up, obviously. I think it's important for voters to be informed, but I think it's also important to point out, as a tax-exempt, not-for-profit health system, and maybe as important as a health system that is committed to being every family's essential partner in raising healthier children, no matter who that family votes for. We don't take partisan stands, we don't endorse candidates. We do have as a core part of our mission advocacy and championing the health needs of children. So why is it important for us to talk about issues then?
Yeah, thank you. It's so important. Kids really rely on us, the adults in their lives, to make sure that the policies that are being passed, that the people that are in office are looking out for their best interest. There are 1.3 million children in Minnesota under the age of 18. That's 1/5 of the state's population. So that's 1/5 of the state's population that can't vote on issues that impact them. So it really is important for the adults in their lives and the people that care for kids when they go to the election or when they go to the voting booth to really pay attention to those issues.
Yeah, they can't vote and they can't really speak out about the issues for themselves. We're their voice. We're the voice of children. So,
Exactly.
And we know there are a lot of public policy issues that do impact children's health. What are some of those policy issues that impact children's health that you're tracking?
There are so many. Kids are impacted by so many issues every single day. And some of those issues are the same ones that we would care about, right? Access to affordable, high quality health care, a strong education system. Certainly for us, early childhood development is one that we're very involved in because we know of the importance of those early years. Food and access to nutritious resources. We know how important that is for a developing, happy, healthy, successful child. So all of those issues are issues that we engage in because we know how critically important they are for the health of our kids.
All right, so you've raised a lot of very complex issues. There are undoubtedly multiple potential solutions to those. I think our goal is to say, how do we, in being the voice of children and advocating for children, how do we first make sure that candidates know that these are important issues to us because they affect kids' health, and then find out from them how they would go about addressing them.
Exactly.
So maybe we can just dive into some of them. You talk about access. So Medicaid is a very important part of access for kids. It's the single largest insurer for kids. I think there are over 600,000 Minnesota children that rely on Medicaid for their health coverage. Talk a little bit about that issue.
That's exactly right. Medicaid is such a lifeline for so many of our kids. As you mentioned, it's the single largest insurer. Over half of the births, or about half of the births that happen in Minnesota, are births on Medicaid, right? So about half of our population, our children's population, rely on Medicaid as the primary health insurer for their coverage. So they rely on Medicaid for things like well child checkups, vaccinations, medications that they might need. Any hospitalizations that come up that they need. Medicaid provides coverage for developmental and behavioral screening and treatment, which is so important, as we know, to kids' development and health. It provides coverage for occupational and rehabilitation services. Again, things that are critically important to a child's health and development. So without a robust, stable Medicaid system, so many of our children would be worse off than where they are.
Yeah, so it sounds like an important issue is ensuring that officials are committed to stabilizing that program in a way that continues to ensure kids access to health care and their health needs. 2020 is a year where we've seen a hugely increased awareness of the issues of equity and structural racism, with the killing of George Floyd, with the disproportionate impact that COVID-19 has had on communities of color. But since at least 2016, our community, the Twin Cities community, has told us loud and clear through our community health needs assessment that structural racism and health disparities are two of the top 5 issues that affect the health of their children. So talk a little bit about how that plays out this year.
That's right. You're right. In 2016 and 2019, we listed structural racism as a community health priority in our community health needs assessment. And that's because we know, and we were told, that the systems and the structures and the policies that have been put in place for hundreds of years have caused or exacerbated the health disparities that we see within our own clinics and within the kids that we serve, right? We see these health disparities in our asthma rates, in our low birth weight babies. We see health disparities in our vaccination rates, and certainly mental and behavioral health. So we know firsthand the health disparities and the disparity between our white children and our children of color. We also know that there are a number of things that we can be doing to help close those health disparities. Minnesota has some of the worst health disparities and academic disparities in the country, so we have a lot of work to do in this area. But we do know that investments in economic supports, investment in those early childhood experiences, investments in family supports, all of those things, those food supports that we know keep kids healthy, starting there and addressing some of those issues will certainly help close some of those health disparity gaps that we have.
Yeah, you mentioned food. I mean, I know as a pediatrician myself, the importance of food and the impact that hunger and food insecurity has on kids. I mean, it affects their physical health, everything from frank malnutrition or anemia to, things like headaches or other symptoms that they might have. It affects their emotional health and mental health, and their attention and their ability to learn. So, talk a little bit about policies related to food security for children.
Yeah, that's right. So sadly, 1 in 8 children in Minnesota experience hunger on any given day.
Wow.
And as you mentioned, there are tremendous side effects to that, right? Research shows that children who experience hunger have higher rates of school absenteeism. They're more likely to show up in the school nurse's office, right, with stomach aches and are unable to concentrate. They're more likely to have behavioral issues at school. All of those things that we know are so critical to a child's health and development. The good news is that we have programs, federal and state programs, that were designed specifically to address those food insecurities. On the federal level, we have the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, more commonly known as SNAP. The Women, Infants, and Children program, more commonly known as WIC, right? And in the state level, funding programs for school meals. We know that so many of the kids rely on schools as their only source of nutrition, a nutritious meal throughout the day. So funding for school meals, school lunch and breakfast programs are so critical. And those are all things that our elected officials and the people that are running for office should know about, so that when they get into office, they can continue funding those really critical, important issues.
Sure. We talked about the impact of food on education. Education, obviously very important for kids, but you mentioned earlier about early childhood development. And we know, for example, this is an issue that's been important to us. The American Academy of Pediatrics has made it a priority. We know that 90% of brain development occurs by the age of 5. That's when most kids are entering kindergarten. It's already mostly done. So talk about some of the early childhood programs that we keep an eye on.
Yeah, it is so important. There are numerous studies that show that children that have access to high quality early care opportunities have higher graduation rates and better health outcomes. There really is no better long-term investment that we can make as a society than investing in our children, especially those earliest years. And a lot of programs out there, such as home visiting programs or those early childhood care programs starting from 0 all the way to 5, investing in those types of programs and funding those programs, particularly for our families, our lower income families who may not have access to those programs, funding through scholarships and other funding sources really goes a tremendous way to make sure that, again, we can start closing some of those opportunity gaps, those health and academic gaps as well.
Obviously, a lot of policy issues that we're keeping an eye on. Thank you for being here and for sharing some of that. I certainly hope that, as people who want to be advocates for kids, who want to serve as the voice of kids, as they're exercising their democratic rights to vote, will use this information so they can, again, help candidates understand that these are really important issues, even if the kids themselves aren't speaking about them, and for us to evaluate how candidates would approach these issues so we can decide how we want to exercise our vote. So thank you again for being here.
Great. Well, thank you for the conversation and for your support.